Good afternoon. Welcome to our studio. Today is the first broadcast in PRAVO Media channel in English, and today our guest is Mr. Mark Davis. You are welcome. Mr. Mark Davis is a very great specialist in our current theme and current discussion field, and now he is assistant and help to project of EU projects in Uzbekistan for helping our authorities in agriculture sphere. If I'm incorrect, just show me what is right. And Mr. Davis was team leader for FAO. It's a food agricultural organization at the United States for more than 70 years. I think it's a long term, it's a big experience, and we very appreciate your presence today. Thank you very much. And our second guest is Ms. Umida Haknazar. She, as far as you know, maybe if you don't know, I will say again that Umida Haknazar is a very great and famous lawyer in Uzbekistan, and not only in Uzbekistan, which specializes in questions of international law, international private law, WTO issues. That's why I think today we have a very good company, and we will discuss very important for our society, for our country, not only for our country, topic about the safety, about the pesticides, about the fertilizers, and we want to show, is it really safe to consume our local fruits, our local vegetables, our agricultural products. That's why I think it will be very important, and not for our standard consumers, standard Uzbek citizens, but also for foreigners who live here and for international institutions and other interested persons who are involved in this process. Thank you.
Very pleased to be here.
First of all, before we start, before we go to the questions or before we go deeply to the topic, I want to say sorry for my poor English. Yes, sorry for my poor English, because it's very
better than my Uzbek and Russian. So
you're very kind, yeah. But when we were a child, and before I first time visited abroad, I strongly believe that Uzbek fruits, Uzbek dry fruits are very famous. They are very tasty. It's best quality, because we was taught by our parents, our media, something like this. And when I first time, especially in US, when I go to Walmart or another food chains, I see that the quality of food, especially fruits and dry food, it's a big difference, and Western quality is much more higher. The fruits, much more tastier, much more cleaner. It's very, I think, important, because before we thought that it's totally another, yeah. And now we see that there is some reasons why it is so, yeah.
Yeah, but don't be deceived, because in America, for example, when you go to Walmart, they love fruit and vegetables that are big and shiny. That doesn't necessarily mean they're good, because also, in order to produce agricultural products that look wonderful, the farmers use a lot of chemicals. These are called cosmetic chemicals. So they make things look beautiful, but they're not really necessary for producing, agricultural output. Uzbekistan is an agricultural nation. You've been growing apricots, walnuts, of course, a lot of cotton as well, for many, many years. Your farmers know how to do that. I think one of the most important things we need to stay focused on is farmers are important people, and they're not well respected in most societies. Farmers have a lot of knowledge as well. We need to respect them. We need to give them the support that they need to be able to produce food and fiber that the world wants. It all comes out of agriculture. The question is, which tools are they using, and how are they working to ensure that what they're producing is good quality, as well as safe, and as well as also producing sustainably, so that not only they can keep farming for the next 5 and 10 years, but their children can keep farming for the next 20 and 50 years, and their grandchildren for the next 100 years. Because if you don't look after the environment that you're using for agriculture, it will disappear, and then you will have serious problems.
Definitely, because next generation should definitely know that they can continue to do.
Absolutely.
Yes. You could just say about the beauty chemicals, yeah, in fruits, for example, in Western countries. Of course, we know that it's impossible to grow something without chemicals now. Unfortunately, almost, yes.
Not
Yes.
sure I agree, but okay, we'll come to that point.
Of course. That's why we're here and discussing, because we
Yeah.
are specialists. Just let us know what we should to know about it. And I recently learned about statistics, and I have seen that Uzbekistan use almost 70% more pesticides that it's usually used in other countries.
Yeah.
And of course, most of these pesticides and fertilizers are prohibited, are banned in the Western countries because it's not safe. It have a big hazard for population, for the next generation, for nature. And I think it's a big difference between chemicals in Uzbekistan and chemicals in other countries, in Western countries, in civilian countries.
Okay. I will be a little bit cautious about the statistics, mainly because I don't think the data exists. I think the government doesn't actually know how much pesticide is being used. So to say we're using 70% more than other countries may not be correct. We don't know. There's a famous saying in English that says 75% of all statistics are made up on the spot.
Yeah.
So we don't actually know what the real story is. From what I have seen, the chemicals that are approved for use in Uzbekistan, some of them are the same as you would find in Europe, in the United States, in other countries. Some of them maybe not. I'm now working with the Agency for Plant Protection and Quarantine, and we will review that list. And I will tell them, these are the things that are not permitted in Europe, these are the things that are permitted. And we will see what that looks like. At the moment, we don't know. Whether the farmers are using a lot of chemicals or not, we know that cotton is a major crop in Uzbekistan. Cotton, globally, is the single agricultural product, that uses more chemicals than any other. One of the reasons that they use a lot of chemicals is because it's not a food crop. So nobody's really worried about residues. But it is terrible for the environment. It is terrible for the people who work in cotton, and also the people that handle the cotton afterwards, because there will be chemicals on that. So yes, we should be concerned. Yes, we need to look at this. But I'll tell you something else about Uzbekistan, which is interesting. There is a really strong program here for biological control of pests in agriculture. The research is here, the knowledge is here. I'm not sure how much it's being used and how much it's theory. Some people tell me a lot of farmers are using it. Some people tell me no farmers are using it. I don't know what the reality is. This is something that needs to be explored. But the potential is there to move away from chemicals to more sustainable and cleaner approaches.
You have just said that you work very closely with our authorities, but practice shows that it's very difficult to work effectively with them, because do you believe that you have and they can provide you the transparent, the pure, clean, and exact information about all data and all things you have to know for making your work very effective?
It's a good question, and it's difficult for me to answer because first, like I said, I don't speak the language, so I am dependent on what's given to me. I am working directly with the technical people. We speak a technical language that they understand, and they're very open and receptive to the information and the advice that I'm giving them. I sometimes ask them difficult questions and they don't have the answers to them. So, we're pushing the boundaries. We're trying to make progress. I have given them advice, for example, on the way they should formulate regulations. And I know that it's not their fault. Somewhere in the system, that advice has been reversed or ignored. So there are other interests in the system that go beyond the technical level. When we start going to the managerial or the political level, things change because they have other interests. I have no control over that, and these technical people have no control over that.
Yeah, and I think it's very important to keep in mind that here is political reasons, political issues, because unfortunately, the agriculture, vegetables, fruits, and cotton It's one of the main part of our import. Yeah, and of course, due to the fact that we can provide to the other markets yes, for other markets, for example, intellectual products or technical products. Yeah, we still continue Banana Republic. Yes, and that's why, due the very sensitive political things, I think your job is very difficult now to do.
Okay, I mean, it's there are important messages here. If the country wants to export produce to make money, that's an important thing to be able to do. Then the question is, who are you exporting to? Because if you're exporting to Europe, they have very high standards. You must comply with their standards, otherwise they will reject. If they reject a shipment of produce, you have to pay to destroy it. So you lose twice. You don't get paid and you have to pay to destroy it. So it's important to meet the standards at the beginning. If you're exporting to maybe China, maybe Russia, maybe their standards are not so high. So you can export poorer produce to them. That's not a good thing. You want to make sure that your produce is good and that they will buy it again next time. If you sell them poor produce, next time they will not buy from you. They will buy from somebody else. But the important message here is, it is not good enough to say, oh, we must send clean produce to Europe, but it's okay to poison our own people. We have to protect our own people as well. That's more important.
Yes, it's what you just answered the next question I want to ask you, because as you had just described, our farmers, our state companies, our state lost a lot of opportunities at Western markets because due to the very strictly and clean regulations. But we already, for example, see the political signals from our neighboring countries that they are waiting our fruits, vegetables to this year. Yeah, I speak about, for example, CIS countries, Russia, where the rules are more flexible. For example, we see that when necessary, the authorities can find fungus in Georgian vines or Moldova vines or insects in Turkish tomatoes. And when other problems are solved, the insects go out from tomatoes. Yes, we understand that it's very sensitive things. But I think the most thing you should put in the heads of our decision makers, that import should be diversified to different directions. Diversification should be, I think, is the most important thing, because if we will only have a goal to make export to Russia, nothing will change, because the rules, the terms, very low. I think I am correct. If not, just tell me.
No, I think that's absolutely right. I think diversification in your markets, diversification in what you're producing also is important. And this is not just a matter of economic security. It's also a matter of, for example, resilience to climate change. Because things are going to change over time. Maybe your farmers are already experiencing this. And they will find that maybe certain crops are more difficult to grow because conditions are changing. They need to adapt to other crops. Having diversification helps you to be more resilient as well. And it's really important to build that into the system. So the fact that Uzbekistan was the cotton growing nation for so many years, great, okay, you know how to grow cotton, but you've also, used up all your water. So, water is going to become more scarce as climate change kicks in, and you need to think about other crops and other things that you can do in your environment that will sustain your economy.
That's why important making a long-term planning, if I understand. Yeah. What Can you say?
I wonder, you worked while you were at FAO, especially. I know that you've been helping to many countries, especially many developing countries. Have you had experience with the countries with non-market-based economy, with non-market-based agriculture, where the farmers basically have no autonomy to choose what to cultivate, how to treat, etc., and where the government is basically the main client and the main and then plus when there is a very distinctive one monoculture sort of. I wonder whether there were some similar cases to Uzbekistan.
Because the main supplier is the government from the farmers. They are not independent what to grow.
Yeah. Yeah, so yes, I worked in FAO for many years, and we worked internationally. So I've worked on all continents with all countries, working with many different kinds of crops and many, national political strategies. I haven't been in a country where farmers in general, across the board, don't have autonomy. But in certain sectors, yes. In fact, cotton is a really good example because it is seen as a cash crop. So it's exported from these countries. And it is very much controlled by the state in many, many countries. Mm-hmm. So I'll give you an interesting example from another country where we have been working for many, many years to help cotton farmers grow organically. So organic cotton has a specific market and they can get a higher price for it. Mm-hmm. And what we find in particular is that the farmers that grow organically, that means they're not using pesticides at all, only ecological and biological controls. Their yields are about the same as conventional farmers. But the difference is that they end up with more money in their pocket at the end of the season because they're not spending money on chemicals. Mm-hmm. So they are profiting from it. When you speak to the National Cotton Board, they're not interested because they are interested in not only selling the cotton, but they also supply the inputs to the farmers. And they want to sell more of those inputs because that brings them more money. So they are actually against this method of growing cotton without chemicals. Even though it's good for the farmers, it's not good for their pockets. So there are contradictions here. And I would imagine that there are similar situations in Uzbekistan. Mm-hmm. If you have a centralized system, a government-controlled system, or even, doesn't have to be government-controlled, if there's a parastatal organization which is running the cotton production system, it's going to be bad for farmers. Farmers have no autonomy. They can't bring about change. It's regressive. It's not a good way of moving forward.